The morning the bank emptied Rowan Hayes' last account, the world seemed to fall silent. The man who had once managed million-dollar projects now stood in a worn-out parking lot holding his 6-year-old son's tiny backpack, wondering how life could collapse so completely in less than a year. His career was gone. His savings had disappeared paying hospital bills for his late wife. His house had been taken by the bank. All he had left was his son, Eli, and a promise he had whispered beside his wife's hospital bed, that no matter how hard life became, he would never let their little boy lose hope. Before we continue this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Every small act of support helps us share more stories that remind the world compassion still exists. The months that followed were cruel. Interviews ended with polite smiles, but no offers. Employers saw a middle-aged single father instead of a talented leader. Bills multiplied while opportunities disappeared. Eli never complained, even when their dinners became simple bowls of soup or peanut butter sandwiches. Every evening the little boy smiled and reminded his father that tomorrow could be better. Those innocent words often became the only thing keeping Rowan from surrendering to despair. One rainy afternoon, while delivering food for a temporary job, Rowan drove through an aging neighborhood where many storefronts had closed long ago. At the end of the street stood an abandoned bakery. The faded wooden sign still carried the name Morning Hearth Bakery. Dust covered the windows, and vines had begun climbing the old brick walls. Something about the building made Rowan stop his car. He stared through the glass and imagined warm bread, fresh cinnamon rolls, families laughing together, and children carrying paper bags filled with pastries. For reasons he could not explain, the empty bakery reminded him that broken places sometimes only needed someone willing to believe in them again. A retired schoolteacher who lived nearby noticed Rowan looking through the window and walked over carrying groceries. She explained that the bakery had once been the heart of the neighborhood. Its elderly owners had passed away within months of each other, and no one wanted the property anymore. The bank planned to sell it for almost nothing because the building required extensive repairs. Rowan thanked her politely, but the idea stayed inside his mind long after he drove away. That evening Eli drew a picture while sitting beside him inside their small apartment. The drawing showed a bakery with smiling people holding fresh bread. Above the building he had written in large, uneven letters, "Dad's bread makes everyone happy." Rowan stared at the drawing with tears filling his eyes. Sometimes hope arrived through the smallest hands. Using the last of his savings and a modest community loan, Rowan purchased the forgotten bakery. Friends thought he had lost his mind. He knew nothing about baking professionally. Yet every successful business began with someone willing to learn. Every morning before sunrise he watched online tutorials, read old recipe books left inside the bakery, and practiced making bread until his hands became rough from kneading dough. Eli proudly swept floors after school and carefully arranged cookies inside the display case. Together they painted walls, repaired broken shelves, and planted colorful flowers outside the entrance. Slowly, Morning Hearth Bakery began breathing again. The first week only a handful of customers entered. Rowan smiled anyway. He learned every customer's name, remembered their favorite pastries, and sometimes quietly added an extra cookie into children's bags. Word spread through the neighborhood that kindness had returned with the smell of fresh bread. Elderly couples lingered over coffee. Parents brought their children after school. Construction workers stopped by before sunrise for warm muffins. The bakery became more than a business. It became a place where lonely people felt welcomed again. Months passed, and Rowan discovered that success was not measured by numbers on spreadsheets anymore. Success looked like Eli laughing while sprinkling powdered sugar on donuts. It looked like neighbors gathering around wooden tables, sharing stories after difficult days. It looked like people leaving with smiles brighter than when they arrived. One beautiful autumn afternoon, as golden sunlight filled the bakery, the front door slowly opened. A sharply dressed woman stepped inside, her expensive shoes clicking across the wooden floor. Rowan looked up from shaping bread and instantly recognized her. Vivian Mercer, the CEO who had signed the papers ending his career. Time seemed to stop. Vivian looked around with visible confusion before recognizing him beneath the flour-covered apron. Her confident expression faded into surprise. She had come searching for a quiet bakery after attending a nearby business conference, never imagining she would find the man whose life her decision had changed forever. The atmosphere inside the bakery grew strangely quiet. Customers sensed an invisible history hanging in the air. Rowan felt old memories rising like painful waves. Sleepless nights, rejected job applications, hospital bills, losing his home, watching Eli pretend not to notice empty cupboards. Every wound seemed to reopen within seconds. Yet something unexpected happened. Instead of anger, Rowan felt peace. He realized the bakery had transformed him into someone different. The broken man Vivian had once dismissed no longer existed. Standing behind the counter was someone who understood the true meaning of resilience. Vivian quietly purchased a loaf of sourdough and sat alone near the window. She watched families laughing together, neighbors greeting one another, and Rowan helping every customer with genuine warmth. The atmosphere carried something money could never buy. As she prepared to leave, she paused near an old wall covered with photographs. Vivian stood silently reading every word. For the first time in years, she saw the consequences of decisions once hidden behind financial reports. She realized she had measured people by quarterly profits instead of character. Rowan had not failed. The system had failed him. Several days later she returned, not wearing an expensive business suit, but simple clothes without assistance or security. She quietly volunteered to help package bread for a charity event supporting homeless families. Nobody treated her differently. Rowan simply handed her an apron. Hour after hour they worked beside local volunteers filling boxes with fresh bread. Vivian listened to stories from customers whose lives had been touched by Rowan's kindness. She heard about free birthday cakes for children whose parents could not afford celebrations. She learned how Rowan secretly delivered bread every Sunday to elderly neighbors unable to leave their homes. Those stories changed something inside her. Weeks later, Vivian publicly announced a new leadership initiative within her company focused on compassion, employee support, and ethical responsibility. She admitted that past decisions had valued profits above people. Although the announcement surprised investors, many employees welcomed the changes with gratitude. One afternoon, she returned to the bakery carrying a small envelope. Inside was a scholarship fund created in Rowan's late wife's memory for single parents hoping to start small businesses. Rowan accepted it only after Vivian agreed the program would never carry her name. It would belong to families rebuilding their lives. Years passed, and Morning Hearth Bakery became famous not because it sold the best bread in the city, but because it reminded everyone who entered that broken dreams could rise again, just like fresh dough waiting patiently in the warmth. Eli grew older, eventually learning every recipe beside his father. Customers who had once visited as children returned with families of their own. The old bakery that many believed was beyond saving became a symbol that hope often hides inside forgotten places. Rowan never became wealthy in the traditional sense. But every evening, as sunlight poured through the bakery windows and laughter filled the room, he realized he had gained something greater than the career he had lost. He had found purpose. He had found family beyond blood. And he had discovered that sometimes the people who close one door unknowingly guide us toward the one we were always meant to open. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a comment, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Special request: before you leave, comment below with the words, "Kindness always rises." Your message may inspire someone who is silently fighting their own battle today. As the bakery lights glowed warmly against the evening sky, Rowan watched another family walk through the front door with smiles on their faces. He knew life would never be perfect, but perfection had never been the goal. Love had, hope had, second chances had, and sometimes, the sweetest bread is baked from the hardest seasons of life. That simple truth became the greatest recipe Rowan Hayes would ever leave behind.